Imagine an army that thought it was unbeatable, completely annihilated in one day. This is the story of Isandlwana, 1879, where the British Empire's finest underestimated the Zulu warriors and paid the ultimate price. This was a clash of titans, a modern, disciplined army against a force of warriors fighting for their homeland. The British, armed with the latest rifles and cannons, believed their victory was a foregone conclusion. But on a single sun-scorched day in South Africa, that belief would be shattered into a million pieces. It's early January 1879. The mighty British Empire has invaded Zululand, a kingdom in southern Africa led by King Cetshwayo. The British are confident, perhaps too confident. Their Martini Henry rifles and powerful artillery have secured victories across the globe. They expect a swift and decisive campaign against what they perceive as a primitive army. The plan seems simple enough. The main British force, under the command of Lord Chelmsford, splits into 3 columns to advance into Zululand. One central column, consisting of about 1,800 British regulars and colonial troops, sets up a sprawling, unfortified camp at the base of a distinctive lion-shaped mountain called Isandlwana. Nearby, a small garrison is left to guard a supply depot and hospital at a mission station called Rorke's Drift. The British soldiers go about their daily routines, drilling in the hot African sun, cleaning their weapons, and writing letters home. They are disciplined, professional, and completely unaware of the storm gathering just beyond the horizon. They believe the main Zulu army is far away. What they don't realize is that the Zulus are masters of their own terrain. They are moving silently, using the hills and valleys to conceal a force of over 20,000 warriors, all converging on the unsuspecting camp. The British commanders made a series of critical, almost unbelievable mistakes. Lord Chelmsford, the overall commander, became convinced the main Zulu army was elsewhere. Acting on faulty intelligence, he took a large portion of his force out of the Isandlwana camp on a futile search, leaving behind a reduced garrison under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Henry Pauline. Pauline was an administrator, not a seasoned field commander, and he was given confusing orders. Crucially, the camp was not lagered, meaning the supply wagons were not drawn into a defensive circle. This was standard practice, a simple, life-saving tactic on the frontier, but it was neglected. There was a sense of casualness, an arrogance that permeated the British command. They failed to send out sufficient patrols, they didn't build proper fortifications, and they fundamentally misunderstood their enemy. They saw the Zulu army as a disorganized mob that would break and run at the first volley of rifle fire. They couldn't have been more wrong. The Zulu army, or Impi, was a highly disciplined and sophisticated fighting force, honed by generations of warfare since the time of the legendary Shaka Zulu. They were organized into regiments, moved with incredible speed and stealth, and employed a brilliant tactical formation known as the Horns of the Buffalo. This tactic involved a central chest that would pin the enemy down, while 2 flanking horns would sweep around the sides to encircle and annihilate them. While the British were relaxing, thousands of Zulu warriors were patiently waiting, poised to spring the trap. Just before midday on January 22nd, a small British patrol stumbled upon the main Zulu force. The surprise was total. A sea of 20,000 warriors rose from the valley where they had been hiding, chanting their war cries and beating their shields. The battle had begun. Back at the camp, the British scrambled to form a firing line. The red-coated soldiers stood shoulder to shoulder, pouring disciplined volleys from their Martini Henry rifles into the advancing Zulu chest. The initial fire was devastating. The British artillery added to the carnage, tearing bloody holes in the Zulu ranks. For a moment it seemed like technology might prevail. The Zulu advance faltered under the hail of lead, but the Zulus were relentless. They absorbed the casualties and kept coming, a seemingly endless tide of humanity. While the central chest pinned the British firing line, the 2 horns of the buffalo began their deadly flanking maneuver. They swept around the British left and right, moving with incredible speed across the broken ground. The British commanders realized too late what was happening. They were being encircled. Panic began to set in. The firing line, stretched too thin, started to run low on ammunition. The reserve ammunition was packed in tightly screwed wooden boxes, and distributing it under fire became a nightmare. As the Zulu horns closed in, the British lines began to crumble. Cohesion was lost. Formations broke apart, and it became every man for himself. The fight descended into brutal hand-to-hand combat. The short bayonet of the British rifle was no match for the Zulu Ikalwa, a short stabbing spear in close quarters. Officers were swarmed and killed trying to rally their men. The camp was overrun. The British soldiers, trapped and surrounded, fought and died where they stood. By the end of the day, the field of Isandlwana was a scene of utter devastation. The British force had been annihilated. Over 1,300 soldiers and their colonial allies lay dead. The Zulus had captured the camp, taking over 1,000 rifles, 2 artillery pieces, and vast amounts of ammunition. The myth of European military invincibility had been shattered. News of the defeat sent shockwaves through the British Empire. Queen Victoria and the public were stunned. How could this happen? The defeat at Isandlwana was a national humiliation, one of the worst disasters in the history of the colonial army. It forced the British to completely re-evaluate their strategy. They rushed tens of thousands of reinforcements to South Africa, determined to avenge the defeat and crush the Zulu Kingdom once and for all. While the British would eventually go on to win the Anglo-Zulu War, the victory at Isandlwana forever cemented the Zulus' reputation as formidable warriors. So how could a modern, technologically superior army lose so catastrophically to a force armed primarily with spears and cowhide shields? The answer is a lethal combination of factors. First, British arrogance and overconfidence. They fundamentally underestimated their enemy's tactical skill, discipline, and fighting spirit. Second, critical leadership failures, splitting their forces, failing to fortify the camp, and poor reconnaissance left them fatally exposed. And third, the Zulus' brilliant use of their own strategy and terrain. The horns of the buffalo tactic was perfectly executed, turning the British strength, their firepower, into a weakness by overwhelming them with sheer numbers and preventing them from maintaining a cohesive defense. Isandlwana wasn't just a failure of technology, it was a failure of imagination. The Battle of Isandlwana stands as a timeless lesson in warfare and a powerful reminder that technology is no substitute for strategy, respect for your opponent, and understanding the ground on which you fight. It proved that a determined people, fighting for their homes and way of life, can achieve the impossible against even the mightiest of empires. This battle is a stark reminder from history that pride often comes before a fall. The legacy of Isandlwana is not just about a shocking defeat. It's about the incredible courage and tactical genius of the Zulu army. Thank you for watching. If you found this story of incredible upsets and military history fascinating, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more deep dives into the battles that shaped our world.